Well, good morning. It is good to be with you today. As you can see, we're carrying on in this series called Dangerous Church, where we're looking at Jesus and how really he in and of himself, how he came to this world and what he chose to embark on was a dangerous mission, and how today we're going to look at the mission of the church, those of us who would call ourselves followers of Jesus, and that Jesus also calls us in with him as his followers. We're guilty by association, and so he's going to call us into some dangerous spaces as well and some challenging places, but it's for our good and the good of others. But before we get there, I want to start today simply by taking a moment to honor all of the mothers, grandmothers, and just ladies in the room. Would you join me in just giving a hand to moms and women in the room? Moms, I want to say just from the bottom of my heart, like, we love you. It's not lost on any of us in this room, your dedication, your commitment, your sacrifice, and the fact that the role that you play in the world is so massive. I say, as a kid who was raised by a single mother, like the places and spaces that you women fill, that just can't be rivaled, and it's things that we can't do ourselves as men as well. And so I want to say thank you. I truly mean that, and just wanted to start by honoring you today. And as we talk, speaking of motherhood, we're going to talk about a dangerous mission, which that in and of itself can be. So as we talk about mission today, I got thinking about this. It's like what is mission? What does that look like? What does that mean? And I think for a lot of us, when we think about mission, we think of like some of the movies we watch, right? Like we think of Mission Impossible, and there's this crazy task that has to be performed. Or we think of Liam Neeson, and he's, they took his kid, and so he's got to go and get his daughter. He's like, I will find you and I will kill you. Like we think of mission and dangerous mission of what Hollywood gives us and action films, and part of that, like, we love that, right? We love it, and it's entertaining because it's this spirit of adventure that it calls us into and invites us into. But the same thing about mission is true. Is the reality of it is like it's going to require risk. It requires risk and challenge, and it always requires great sacrifice. And so we're going to talk today about Jesus and his mission, and at the same time how he calls us to step into that. A mission is also a very specific thing, right? Like if there's a mission to be done, it is a specific purpose task that needs to be done, and it's a very pointed thing. And so we're going to talk about today, well, what was Jesus' mission? And Jesus' mission, put simply, is that he came to seek and save that which was lost. We read this in Luke 19 where it says, for the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost, meaning he came that which is far from God, that which is lost, broken. Jesus came to redeem it, to bring it back to the Father, and to do what it couldn't do for itself, i.e. that's you, that's me, that's all of us. And Jesus' mission was deliberate and dangerous. We can't make any mistake about that. Like Barry talked last week about how dangerous and how bad of a dude Jesus actually was, and how sometimes we have this image in our head of like the Jesus that holds the lamb in the photo and things like that, and it's just sad because it couldn't be any further from the truth of who he is. The truth of who he is and the places and spaces that he stepped into were certainly not cute and quaint and simple, but oftentimes dangerous and challenging. But Jesus was deliberate in what he stepped into. And we're going to look at a story today where Jesus is very deliberate with what he's doing. And at the same time, there's an element of danger in where he goes. So if you have your Bibles, John chapter 4 is where we're going to hang out today. And it's this story of the woman at the well, or the Samaritan woman. And most of us has probably heard this, and we're going to unpack some things from it. It starts like this in verse 1. It says, Now when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making and baptizing more disciples than John, although he himself did not baptize, but only his disciples, he left Judea and departed again for Galilee. And he had to pass through Samaria. So he came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near a field that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. And Jacob's well was there. And Jesus, wearied as he was from his journey, was sitting beside the well, and it was the 6th hour. Pause. There's this story starts out and really with an element of danger. Word's getting out about Jesus. He's making disciples. He's making more disciples than John, and the Pharisees are grumbling and they're wondering. And so Jesus knows that they're catching wind of it, and so he decides to head back to Galilee, and so he leaves because he's frustrating the Pharisees. But what is so interesting here is this move in and of itself to make a stop in Samaria was a dangerous thing to do. See, Jesus is already in trouble with this religious elite group that's trying to have him killed. And the passage in verse 4 says that he had to go to Samaria. But here's the thing is when you study this passage, what you learn and find out is no, he didn't. Jesus didn't have to go to Samaria. In fact, Jews in this time wouldn't associate with Samaritans. And so if they were headed from Judea to Galilee, they would actually take a route around the city, around the town of Samaria, and completely avoid it because those people were unclean, seen as filthy, seen as vile people. And so Jews would actually avoid it and go a whole different route to Samaria. But Jesus, leaving where he was, and he's making disciples and frustrating Pharisees, he actually decides and says that he has to go to Samaria, this place that he's not supposed to be in. He goes there and he's sitting at this well, and Jesus also has to go there because he has a purpose in what he's doing. He's actually on mission to seek and save something that's been lost and far from him. And the point being this is that Jesus' mission, the dangerous mission of Jesus, will compel us out of comfort. All right? Like, it will compel us out of comfort. So those of us, if we would say, hey, we are followers of Jesus, we have to understand and know that his mission is going to compel and call each and every one of us at some point or another out of comfort. Jesus goes to Samaria, this place where Jews don't go because it's seen to be filthy, dirty, and less than. And he goes out of what would be a typical comfort zone because he's after somebody. As followers of Jesus, if we're honest with ourselves, the truth is that we all drift toward comfort, don't we? Like we have moments where we may step out in faith and be willing to step out of our comfort zone. But myself included, I would say, man, there's just more often than not, it's easy for me to drift back into comfort, but we can't miss that the reality is that he will call us out of comfort. The passage goes on in verse 7. And it says, a woman of Samaria came to draw water. And Jesus said to her, give me a drink. For his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, how is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans. And Jesus answered her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is saying to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. And the woman said to him, sir, you have nothing to draw water with, and that well is deep. Where do you get that living water? And are you greater than our father Jacob? He gave us all the well and drank from it himself and his sons and his livestock. And Jesus said to her, everyone who drinks from this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks from the water that I will give him will never be thirsty again. The water I give will become a spring of water welling up to eternal life. And the woman said to him, sir, give me this water so that I will not be thirsty again and I will not have to come here to draw water. Here's the thing in this passage is Jesus goes very deliberately to Samaria to sit at this well. There's so much contextually happening here that you have to know and understand. It's the middle of the day. It's the noon hour, and this woman's coming to get water from the well. But in this day and age, that was not normal. In this day and age, you would go at the early hours of the morning to get water for the whole day. You wouldn't come in the middle of the day, in the heat of the day, when it's hottest. And all of the women from the village and community, they would go out together and draw their water and take it back to the village. She's there by herself. She's coming alone because the truth and the reality is, as we're going to see later in the story, she is an outcast in their society. She is somebody who is not even accepted in her own society and her own culture, and Jesus is going after her. And to be honest, he goes right after her and starts evangelizing to her. And he asks her for a drink, but we know that he doesn't actually want a drink. He actually wants to offer freedom to her. And she tells him, you don't have anything to draw water, sir. And he tells her, I have water that you know nothing of. But if you were to ask me for it, you'd never have to draw water again. You'd never have to come looking and searching and getting something that is temporal and won't last again. if you would ask me for it. And I mean, it's the ultimate evangelism. And then right there, she's like, yep, I'm in. Hey, give me that living water. And we're going to see it gets a little awkward here in a moment. But the truth is this, is that the mission of Jesus will cost us something. For those of us who are willing to step into the mission of Jesus, it'll cost us something. The reality is that what Jesus is doing in this moment is social suicide. It's not normal or okay for him to be there. The woman herself says, why are you here? And why are you, a Jew, even asking me for a drink? You know you're not supposed to interact with me. And the truth and the reality is Jesus pushes right past that, and he's saying, hey, those who understand me and what I'm after understand that like we're willing to give up, and we will sacrifice that for the greater that he is calling us to the well that won't run dry. Jesus, the mission of Jesus calls us to seek and serve the lost. There's a truth and a reality that we said Jesus' mission was to seek and save, and if we're honest, you and I both know we don't have the power to save anyone, right? Like I can love people, I can care for them, but I don't have the power to save anyone. I'm lucky some days to tie my shoes and get my pants zipped. Like we don't have the power to save anyone, but here's the thing is those who would call ourselves followers of Jesus, what we can do is we can serve. Like we can seek and serve that which is lost. Because if we're honest, that's what somebody did for us, for you and for me. And that is the call as his followers to step out and say, okay, what am I looking for? And like, who have you put around me, God? Maybe it's in work. Maybe it's in my own home. Maybe it's at school. Maybe it's just at the park in public. The mission of Jesus calls each of us to step in to seek and to serve that which God puts before us. Say, hey, I want you to see a need and meet a need here. I want you to encourage that mama who's struggling and she doesn't know me, but she could because of you. The mission of Jesus will call us to seek and serve the lost. And here's the thing is that service, especially today in this day and age, I think communicates the love of Jesus more powerfully than just about everything. In a world where we are fixated on ourselves, in a world where we are focused on ourselves and what we have going on and all that we, to seek out and serve somebody for no benefit of our own, for no gain of our own, but to meet them where they are and to love them in that space will be one of the greatest testaments we can give as Jesus' followers on mission after that which is lost. The next thing about Jesus' mission is it invites in that which has been cast out. See, this woman, she's here and she's at the well, and as I said, this is not a normal time. All of the ladies of the village would have come to the well at a different time, and Jesus goes because he knows she's going to be there, and he has a desire, and his heart is to call in and invite in that which has been cast out. And maybe you're here today and you're hearing me and you're like, well, Kris, I wouldn't call myself a follower of Jesus, so you're not talking to me. And here's what I would say is the deal and the offer on the table from Jesus to you is that no matter where you're at, where you've been, how far from him you think you are, or how outcast you think you might be, his heart and what he seeks is to invite you in. There's nothing that you can do. There's nothing that's been done to you that separates you so far from Jesus that he can't redeem you and call you back in and say, hey, come be a part of the family. Hey, I want to go deep with you, and I want to talk about some things. And we're going to see here in a minute that Jesus is not just after a surface level submission or surface level yes. Like he's going to go deep with this woman. And he does that for each and every one of us. We have to understand this, that the world only offers in part what Jesus came to offer in full. What do you mean, Kris? Where are you going with that? And here's the thing, is this woman is at the well and she's coming to draw water, right? She's coming to draw water, and we all have our water, don't we? We have that thing that we're going to go to and we keep coming back for. And maybe we go to it because we're ashamed or whatever it might be, but she's there drawing water, and Jesus' offer to her is hey, I have something that you'll never have to draw water like that again. If we're honest, most of us have pieces and parts of our story where we've sought what the world offers. And it offers some nice things that might quench our thirst for a minute, for a moment, like the water that this lady's after. But the truth is that they won't offer in full. There's no sustenance or lasting effect with them. We have to keep coming back for more. And we can't miss this, is that Jesus is trying to open our eyes to see that, hey, what the world offers in part, I offer in full. I will give you water that will be a spring of eternal life inside of you. C.S. Lewis, he talks about this in his book, Screwtape Letters. Screwtape Letters is this book where this demon, this elder demon named Screwtape, he's actually coaching his nephew, this demon named Wormwood, on how to lead astray and distract the believers and Christians. And he actually says to him, he says this quote, and he says, "The simplest is to turn their gaze away from him and towards themselves, to keep them watching their own minds and trying to produce feelings, thereby the action of their own wills. And when they are meant to ask of him for charity, let them instead start trying to manufacture charitable feelings for themselves and not notice that this is what they are doing." What Screwtape is saying to Wormwood there is he's saying, hey, as you distract them, just woo them in. Let them look for good feelings and good vibes. Let them seek their truth rather than the truth. And let them be distracted and caught in it. And Jesus is trying to get our eyes to see, hey, if you would get your eyes off of you and onto me, I offer in full what the world only gives you shadows of. The passage goes on in verse 16. Jesus said to her, "Go call your husband and come here." Okay, so we can't miss this. So Jesus offers her living water. He's basically evangelizing strategy here, and she's all in. She's like, "Yep, I'll take it." And then most of us, like, my recommendation to you is if you're sharing the gospel with somebody and they say, "Hey, I'm in," then you say, "Awesome, let's get baptized." But Jesus is like, "Hey, go get your husband." It gets real awkward because he knows she doesn't have a husband, right? He knows she doesn't have a husband, and he's going to press in to some deep and really dark, hard spaces in her life before they go any further. He says, "Call your husband and come here." And the woman answered him, "I have no husband." And Jesus said to her, "You are right in saying, 'I have no husband,' for you've had 5 husbands. And the one you're with now is not your husband. What you have said is true." And the woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you say that in Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know, but we worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. The hour is coming, and it's now here, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For the Father is seeking such people to worship him. And God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." And the woman said to him, "I know the Messiah is coming, he who is called the Christ. And when he comes, he will tell us all things." And Jesus said to her, "I who speak to you am he." So here's the thing is the lady says she's all in, and Jesus says, "Okay, go get your husband." And then begins to unpack her whole life to her. And so she starts having questions. She's like, "I perceive that you're a prophet. And so tell me this, is like, the Jews say that we need to go and worship in Jerusalem, but like, where are we supposed to?" And she just starts, "Okay, let me unpack, let me understand and know everything." And what Jesus does is he points her to the fact and reality that he says, yes, you know the things that the religious Jews have taught you. You have the head knowledge and you understand where they say we will worship. But he says, the true followers and true worshipers that the Father seeks are those who would worship in spirit and in truth. What he's saying to her is he seeks those whose heads and hearts are both engaged with him and seeking to follow and walk with him, both in their head and in their heart. And so we talk about this idea of dangerous mission. I think some of us are like, "Hey, I don't know if I'm into the whole dangerous thing. I don't know if I'm into the whole dangerous thing, or was he really that dangerous, Kris? Like, is what Jesus calling us to really that dangerous? Or why does it have to be this way? And here's the thing is, I would say this, is I think that every single one of us chooses dangerous in one way or another. Right? Like life itself is dangerous. Whether we think we're safe or good, the feeling of safety in so many ways is a facade. Like we live here stateside in the United States where things generally seem safe. But there are assumptions we make on a daily basis just because we wake up the way that we do in our homes with clothes and food, that there are people around the globe who just simply don't wake up that way. There's no assumption that life and the everyday, day-to-day things are or will be safe. But the truth is, we all choose dangerous in one way or another. I would simply say this is, I think that sometimes, what I mean by this is what we choose that we think is safe is actually the most dangerous of all. It's the most dangerous of all because it's seeking things of the world when the King of the universe offers us eternity and offers us fullness of life. And what I would say is those things actually can just simply be categorized as foolish. What do you mean by that, Kris? I think we all choose dangerous because I think my hand's raised, but we've all chosen very foolish things in life to run after, haven't we? Money, status, power, sex, a better story, the things of this world, the stuff of God rather than him himself, right? Here's one of the foolish things I think that is so dangerous that we choose regularly today is this idea of self-reliance. You do you, it's your truth, your strength. And here's the reality is to live in those things and pursue after those things is simply dangerous and foolish because they would be things that are hollow, things that are unwise, and things that would terminate on self rather than what they were meant to terminate on. And the truth is that as we talk about this idea of dangerous, there's dangerous that's good as well, right? Barry shared last week the C.S. Lewis quote about Aslan, and she asked, and she says, oh, is he safe? And he says, safe? No, he's a lion. Of course he's not safe, but he's good. And in the same way, I think Jesus calls us to a dangerous mission, dangerous but good. Not necessarily safe, but what he calls each and every one of us into is a dangerous mission with him that will require of us great sacrifice, that will require of us submission to his will rather than our own. It's the mission of Jesus that will confront every single one of us. It's confronted you, it's confronted me, it confronts each one of us in our lives and in places and space of our lives, just like he confronts this woman in the story. And in Jesus' confrontation, what he's after is not to simply be cruel and to do harm to this woman, right? Jesus is saying, I get that you're in and you have a surface level, yes, but I'm after something much deeper. I want to redeem and restore all of the parts of you. The mess, the past, the things, the reason that you're here at the well in the middle of the day, I want all of that, and I'm going to redeem it and turn it for good so that you would know and that in turn others would know because of what I've done here. That there's something outside of what this world would offer them. So what do we do? As followers of Jesus, those who would call ourselves followers of Jesus, and we're supposed to go on mission with him, and then this idea of he confronts us, and we live in this world where like confrontation seems hard and weird. And the point is like when we step into places and spaces with people, God might call us to confront, not in ways that are harmful or unloving or to call somebody out, but simply to call people into the story of, hey, like Jesus, if you were to step into life with him, he's gonna confront something. He's gonna pull some things out of you. And here's the thing: is the way that he does this is like this. That when we look at Jesus in his life, and as he confronts and steps into spaces with people, he always leads with love and lands on truth. Like you see this with the rich young ruler. You see this with the woman caught in adultery. You see this with so many stories that Jesus, he steps in and he's not shying away from or afraid of the mess or the brokenness of the situation. He simply steps in with love and shows them, hey, I care for you. I am here for you. I came for so much more than just the stuff you're concerned about, the things that make you feel messy or broken. He leads with love, and then he lands on truth. This is who I am. This is what I came for. Follow me. I created you. I gave you purpose. I have a mission for you. It's the best one. I am truth. Not what the world says or not what your feelings say or your heart says. He says he leads with love, and he always lands on truth. Verse 27, it goes on. It says, just then the disciples came back. They marveled that he was talking with a woman. But no one said, what do you seek, or why are you talking with her? So the woman left her jar of water, and she went away into the town and said to the people, come and see a man who told me everything that I ever did. Can this be the Christ? And they went out of the town, and they were coming to him. It's crazy when you think about it, that this woman who is at the well midday, she's cast out by her own people, her own society. She encounters Jesus, and she then becomes the woman who sprints back to town. She leaves her stuff there, and she's like, hey, you guys have to come and meet this guy. I think I just met somebody who set me free. She's at the well because she's ashamed. She doesn't want to encounter. She doesn't want to interact with other people. And at the same time, after an encounter with Christ, she's running to town to share with everyone. And she obviously shares in a way that's compelling and convincing enough that it says the town folk come out and start coming to Jesus. Dangerous missions will require dangerous faith. The mission of Jesus will require faith fueled by Jesus. It's going to call us to step out of our comfort zones, step into some spaces with people that we would not necessarily spend time in or be in regularly. But he calls us to it, and a dangerous faith would simply mean a spirit rooted in trust in what we can't see, but what we know to be true. We get this from Hebrews 11:1 when it says, now faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. We're going to dive into dangerous faith next week. What does that look like? See, mission, it's pointed, and God has called each one of us to a mission. We're going to dive into faith and the things we can't see next week. But the thing about this woman is that Jesus' dangerous faith and his encounter with her enabled her to go and have a dangerous faith with those she was running and hiding from before. And he invites you, and he invites me, he invites each and every one of us into a similar mission. And he will provide the faith that we would lean in and trust in him, and that we would just simply have the courage to seek out those that he's placed around us that he wants us to share with. We'd have the courage to share, hey, this man told me everything that I have ever done. I don't know what your story is, but hey, this man changed this in my life. Can I just tell you about it? I don't know all of the things, but I know this is what he did. The dangerous mission of Jesus, we said at the beginning, will compel us out of comfort. It will also compel us into courage. Courage to seek, the courage to share, the courage like this woman to question. Why me? Why are you talking to me? He's okay with questions. He'll be gentle, he'll be kind, he'll answer them with love, and he will land on truth. The dangerous mission of Jesus will compel us to courage, the kind of courage that allows us to help set other people free. It's the mission of the church, it's the mission of Jesus, it's the mission for you and I. It's to seek and to serve the lost around us, and in order to do that, to serve the lost, you have to step in to lost places and spaces as Jesus did with his heart level faith. Would you pray with me? God, we love you, we praise you, and we thank you for your son. God, I thank you that Lord, that you loved us enough to step into messy and broken places and uncomfortable spaces simply to set us free. God, help me to remember that and be reminded of that for myself, and help anyone in here who's listening, who's watching, who would call themselves one of your followers, that you came in the same way for them. Lord, we praise you and we love you, and it's